Hello everybody, Eddie Hates Anime here, talking about a Winter 2026 anime, a sequel to an anime that's a spin-off of another anime. My Hero Vigilantes Season 2, let's go! Well, it's actually My Hero Academia Vigilantes, right? I think I have a couple volumes here, let me check. It is officially called, no, I actually only have the original series over here, so I'm a fraud. But I believe it's My Hero Academia Vigilantes, which is still kind of weird because there's no academia about it, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Does not matter. My positives on this series going into this review are going to remain very similar to the first season. So I'll get into that later, but it's going to be a bit shorter than normally I would spend on these things because it's a second season. And I want to get into some of the more controversial aspects of the season. It's not that crazy. You know what we're getting into if you've seen the series. But my point is that the negatives for this season are season specific as opposed to series specific, while other series would be same old most of the time. But you will see what I mean shortly. And you know, if you enjoy this type of content, subscribe for more. I will start off by saying, if you haven't watched the series but know of My Hero Academia in general, like a lot of people I would reckon, I will say that this series is worth viewing because it does offer a vibe not given by its main series, an edgier side of the same universe, more down to earth, the less glamorous parts of the world. And by the world, I mean Japan, but it's anime, you know. So jokes aside, we do get to see a whole new side of the world, world building wise. It also is a fun watch because it looks like a comic book with its dotted backgrounds and sound effect words on the screen, like a punch saying punch or some shit. You just didn't get as much of these moments right off the bat with the original. If I'm remembering off the top of my head, like there was some, but it wasn't nearly as in your face as this is. Even though the original My Hero is obviously, Horikoshi has said this a million times, based off of Western hero comics, this just leaned into the vibe a bit more from the get-go. This anime is still done by Studio Bones, and I don't know if it's the same team, but while there are those differences I mentioned, it still has a consistent visual language with the main series, flair aside, so it doesn't feel super disconnected or anything. It doesn't feel like you're watching a different anime that's My Hero name only. No, it feels like you just turned on to their episode and it happens to be telling a different story. Even the original manga, which is not done by Horikoshi, still feels in line with the work that he does, enough to where it doesn't throw you off reading or looking at it as part of the My Hero world. This season brings us into the Osaka Incident arc, the Team Ups arc, School Days arc, and the Sky Egg arc, which I found interesting because the School Days arc, if you guys didn't know, it's essentially an Aizawa flashback high school arc. And it's one of my favorite arcs in the My Hero world in general, but especially Vigilantes. And in the manga, it's at the end of this list, but in the anime it's now before the Sky Egg arc. Now, how do I personally feel about the moving around of these moments? I'm not gonna lie, I don't care as much as I probably should, because it's a flashback arc, so it doesn't mess with too much moving it around, to be honest. And in general, from a anime build-up hype for the last episode scheduling point of view, it makes sense to end off on the happenings of Sky Egg and lead into the next season with more focus on Koichi and Ko, which are the main characters if you didn't know, instead of ending on an Aizawa story peak that doesn't directly lead into what the next season would give us. One side note before we move on, I want to cosplay Aizawa soon. I was going to do it with just my natural hair because it's slightly longer, but it'd be all messy and stuff. But I'm getting a haircut soon, so like, I don't know if I'm going to do it like that, but we'll see. We'll see. Either that or we'll do just a really shitty wig, but I would love to cosplay Aizawa. Grow out my facial hair just enough to be scruffy, like right now, but a little bit more maybe. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Or I can do high school him, but I don't think I pull it off. But what I wanted to say is that it doesn't help that this is the best part of the story in this season, in my opinion. Not much fault to Koichi and Ko, but they don't feel as much of center focus already for a lot of the arcs that are being adapted because it's a lot of setting up for the craziest shit the series has to offer later already. So there's lots of pieces moving around, lots of stuff happening, and it's not as 3 vigilantes against whatever, like the first season gave us. Which is one thing when you're a weekly manga, but the pacing for an anime, as I mentioned, is a whole different beast because you don't see these characters for a year or two or longer, and your thoughts on them heavily depend on your last impression. So, on the bright side, this season, with its plethora of pro-hero moments, is a good supplement to the original series, which I'm sure people went into Vigilantes wanting, as opposed to a fun original story with new characters. And that's fair and all. And for those fans, this season might be better for them, or at least the Aizawa arc, than the rest of Vigilantes. But one could argue this stuff, especially the flashback arc, which, as I mentioned, I love is in peak, by the way, could have been in the main series or its own side one-shot, because that actually that has nothing to do with vigilantes, besides the fact that Aizawa is quite prevalent as a helping hand. You know, like some of the pro heroes are around more than others, but that doesn't mean that this whole personal backstory that happens to connect to a villain in the main series had to be here. I'm glad it is. I'm super happy it is. But like I said, that it kind of works against itself in that way, which just kind of sucks because it makes me scared that people are going to be viewing this as a series that only has things to offer in relation to the original series as opposed to the vigilante-centric stuff, because the vigilante-centric stuff is amazing. The rest of the story is amazing. But I'm scared because even I'm doing this in this review where I'm like, if you don't care about the rest of this, just watch the Aizawa arc. Just watch the Aizawa arc. I don't think this will happen. I don't think it's as big a deal as I'm making it, but like, I don't want people to view this as just the Aizawa arc, especially season 2. I don't think it's that bad, but like I said, there are some fans out there that probably won't touch this except for that. And that saddens me because it's a worthwhile series to read or watch, especially because Captain Celebrity's entire existence is here. The goat of all goats, and not Japan, so slightly world building. But back to what I was saying. But to give that arc more positives outside of the actual narrative tale that it is being amazing, is I do low-key like that it gives the spinoff a case for mattering. What I mean by this specifically is you get a lot of spinoffs and stuff written by other authors, done by different artists, and it'll be canon, quote unquote, but in a way of like, who gives a fuck, because there's almost nothing connecting the series above it to this series, and it's canon in name only for merchandise and selling and maybe like a name drop. While in this case, it punches above its weight class, giving a main character's backstory that is circled back on later in the main series above it later. You could even make the case that that wouldn't have happened without this, because if I'm remembering correctly, when these came out, that was the order. It came out of Vigilantes, it was circled back on later, and you don't get that by coincidence without them talking to each other about this. I don't know who brought it on first, like if Horikoshi was like, can you do this? I'm going to circle back on this. Or if it was like, oh, I like that you did that off of notes I gave you about the backstory or whatever, I'm bringing this back later, or hey, I'm going to do this. I don't know, but I want to make the case that it wouldn't have happened the way it did without Vigilantes doing it the way it did first. I don't know. I'm trying to give you benefit of the doubt here, Vigilantes. So yeah, glad it exists. Kind of glad it forces the series to be more important to the main so I can use it to lure more people into reading it or watching it. But realistically, should have just been the original manga instead. But for those of you who are anime only and might be a bit spooked by this, by my kind of fear-mongering saying that like the best part of the season isn't even Vigilantes, do not worry, as I assure you, season 3 onwards, we'll get back to the focus. We have peak incoming. I'm just telling y'all. It's about to get crazy. And yeah, on to the next portion of the review. I think I low-key just hyper-fixated on a random specific aspect for way too long, but whatever. As I mentioned at the start, show still looks great, visually consistent, animation's still good. It's really solid. Don't remember anything bad. I just remember it being pretty good, you know. And because a lot of Vigilantes has a lot of night stuff, we don't see people complaining about a blue sky every day on Twitter. Jokes aside, moving on. Still sounds great. The new opening and the new ending are really chill. Not as memorable as the first seasons, in my opinion, because those were like really fun. But I think you just lose some of the sparkle, some of the luster of the series when you don't have Knuckle Duster around all the time, because this is more than just the music thing, but also the series. But also partially the music, weirdly enough, because yes, music is a sound thing. I'm not listening to Knuckle Duster, but if I'm specifically talking like the openings and the endings visually, because if I'm talking specifically about an anime opening and ending in that context, I'm thinking about the visual. And the visual of the trio is so strong in this series that missing one of the trios and still seeing visuals of it is just kind of... It's kind of like, I missed this, you know? But, once again, do not worry, season 3 is coming. And the overall soundtrack, the stuff that I don't connect to anything visually outside of when they come in the show, like OSTs, still pretty good. I tend to remember a lot of the slice of life portions of this series more for its music in my mind than the battle music, but that's not a bad thing. I think it's like, I don't know, the series has a lot of good slice of life, and I think it was a good season overall. But yeah, unfortunately, when up against the first season, it is noticeably less exciting, which in hindsight makes sense. But as a reader of the manga every other week as it dropped, I wouldn't have went into the season predicting that I was going to see this season as any lower quality, just because my mind sees Vigilantes as one big story with a bunch of arcs in it, but it's all one thing, as opposed to this set of arc this set of arcs that come out years apart. And yes, that is anime at its core, but just when you're reading manga, seeing that one story versus that, this is why rating on My Anime List was so weird to me when I first like looked at the website when I was younger, because I was so used to rating stories by totality. Because of course, when you first start anime, you watch a lot of stuff that's already finished, and then you start watching stuff seasonally as well. And that was where I was really struggling. I was like, I've never thought of I don't know, Attack on Titan as seasons 1, 2, and 3 before. I watched seasons 1 through 3 all at the same time or whatever, you know. So it threw me off for a while, but I kind of get it now, and it is fun to do it like that. But at the end, like, more often than not, rate something by everything that's out so far. So like this, if I talk to someone about My Hero Vigilantes, the anime, I will talk about seasons 1 and 2. I'm not gonna be like, yeah, season 1 was a 8 and season 2 was like a whatever. You know, those aren't ratings, by the way. I'm just throwing out numbers. Don't need people putting clips of this shit out there. But moving on, I would still definitely recommend this season if you like Vigilantes already, or just My Hero in general. There is plenty of stuff to have fun with. Aizawa mentions aside, there's still a bazillion Easter eggs to the overall universe. Pretty good lore of like the inner workings of things. And just because it is set before the main series, seeing some people when they were younger, seeing certain relationships form, it's all really worth it. Not even getting into how good the story is. The story is pretty good. But on its own, this season isn't the strongest the franchise has to offer. And that's okay, because as I alluded to, that could just be my perception of the quality of Vigilantes as a finished story, start to finish, which is affecting my thoughts because I'm watching season 2 pigeonholed on its own, and it's making me like, I don't know, it's making me think weird, man. I can see why someone who only watches the anime, because I feel like if you only watch the anime, you're probably less forgiving towards this season than I am. And I thought it was good. I'm not one said it is bad, so I'm kind of fighting against imaginary comments right now, but I'm just trying not to sell a false narrative here, okay? Just letting y'all know where I'm coming from. It's my fucking channel, it's my review of Crashing Out. I thought it was pretty good. So what did you think of My Hero Vigilante Season 2? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you think that Captain Celebrity is a low-key, a beautiful specimen who deserves a fanfic written about him the reader? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you're new. Road to 3K, and I'm out. Peace.